We just talked briefly with Anne about this, so I'll just direct the question to you first, Anna, because I was wondering, when you apply for one job, you kind of deselect some other things. Like, what were your considerations in going into that first job that you applied for? Did you feel like you chose not to go into another direction? Do you understand the question?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I can answer and then you can tell me if I got it right. But I think my main consideration was to get a job. I mean, it was of course important that it was in the vicinity of what I've been doing. But I think I was a bit discouraged in the beginning when because I started out like aiming for the researcher jobs, and I didn't get any answers at all. I tried to use my network and nothing really worked. I absolutely think, maybe sounds a bit conceiting, but I think I was overqualified for my first job. But I got it, and I had a foot in the company, and that just 6 months later turned into a position that was closer to what I wanted to do. So I think maybe I wasn't that fussy about the first job. I just wanted to get out there and have something on my CV. Yeah.
We have a bit of a related question. So I clearly lack experience from a pharmaceutical company, for example, when applying for job ads. Do you think it could be a strategic move to maybe apply for something you are a little bit overqualified for, or just to get a foot in within the company or within a similar company, just to improve your CV, or is that too much of a compromise? Do you have any experience?
I think it depends on the company, and it also depends on what you want, because if you are satisfied with that and it's satisfied your experience to having a job, then I think it could be the right way to do it. It was not a clear choice that I just want to have experience within a company and then move on. I simply just wanted to challenge myself in a new way, and then my experience was that it was a good thing that I had the experience from inside the company. But it depends. I think it's about a gut feeling. Yeah.
I think maybe it's important also to not believe that you will get your dream job from the get-go. You need some experience, and both from like positions and what you need to deliver, but also to understand the internal structure of a company, a pharmaceutical company or a medical device company, and kind of see the opportunities and the different positions you can apply for when you are in the company. So that absolutely brings something as well, just to have that inside knowledge.
If I can just add, when I was in Eli Lilly, I could see that, and it was in contrast to what I experienced in the academia, that if you delivered, you were also awarded. So if you start in a position where you maybe are qualified but are doing very well, then the company will look, well, we can use her or him in another position. But again, it is a gut feeling, but absolutely be broad in your approach when you're applying. Yes?
I have so many questions, but I think Anna heard some of them. And the first thing is a very general question that usually, or based on your experience, how many rejections you got before you got your first offer, and how many applications you applied? Maybe there are something just you didn't hear any feedback. Are
I'm
there
impressed by
anything?
your 3 rejections. That was not my number. 50, 60,
60.
Yeah, around.
That's a lot of work.
I also went to interviews where I was told that I didn't have the chemistry was there, but the experience wasn't there. That kind of pissed me off a bit because they could see that on my CV, but that's just the name of the game. I think also with recruiters and all the kind of the opportunities you get, just seize them and grab them, and you get experience with talking to people, go to interviews, and if it doesn't work out, you have that experience and you're less nervous next time, and you know perhaps a bit more what they're looking for when they ask questions. And the same thing with recruiters. I think when you're in the industry, you get contacted almost on a weekly basis by recruiters, some more serious than others. But I think if it sounds interesting, set up a meeting and see what they have to tell you about a job, and you have that experience. So the more experience you can get.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is, do you feel actually there's some difference between the foreign countries in foreign companies in Denmark and the Danish countries, because you have that experience working in different companies?
True. Well, I don't have that much experience. I mean, I have one company that I've been employee at that has been American, but it's my experience was that it was very American. I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but it was very elbows out, a bit more hierarchy, and a lot more focus on sales. So when I transferred to the Danish small company, Fersen, it was very leveled. We were all on the same level. We had actually outsourced marketing to Johnson & Johnson in the States, so there was no marketing at all, and that was fantastic. So I think it's the culture might be the same in the local offices, but what you do need to remember is that top management is somewhere else. So if headquarters is in the US, for example, the whole company is run, the directions and the strategies are colored by the country where headquarters is. So, yeah.
Can I ask? Okay, thank you. I'm wondering, I think the pressure related to work is different. Also, of course, based on different job positions. Do you, in general, feel more frustrated or more tired working in the industry, or compared to your PhD time?
Yeah, maybe like I said on my last slide, that there is another speed in the industry and other expectations, but it also depends on the job, because if you have a job where you have to deliver every day, during my PhD I had to deliver after 3 years, so it is depending on the job title, but it is another speed, and there is a higher meeting frequency, higher level of email flow. So it is completely different than working in the public sector, I think.
Can I just add? I think it's also, there were a lot of frustrations when you're a PhD student as well. So that's also what it is. But I think my experience in the industry is that it goes in flows. So if you have deliverables, you need to submit something, then you work more. And then you have more quiet periods where you can work less. So my ambition is absolutely to work the 37 hours per week. It's just not even.
And we have a question from the chat, which was actually posed to Ida earlier, but it's very much related to what you're talking about now. It is how flexible are the jobs within the industry? Are you working very long hours, or is there a room for flexibility within the positions?
In ALA, there is room for flexibility, definitely, and it has been reconsidered after the Corona lockdown. So now it is much more flexible than it has been. Yeah, and also on week-to-week base, because if you work more 1 week, you can compensate in another week. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my experience as well. Very flexible.
Okay, I have a question. When I worked in Eli Lilly, I was almost killed by the standing operator procedure forms I need to read and go through and check up. I have read. And in the beginning I thought, well, it doesn't matter if I do that or not. But it did. Isn't that the most annoying part of being in the life science industry? I know it is mandatory to do such task, but just to read all the manuals and the questions or the procedures that are related to different kinds, different parts of the job.
Well, that's a handful, but especially when you start a new job, I think you have like 200 SOPs lying in your inbox.
But I think this is where there's a clear line between the food industry and the pharmacy industry, because in the food industry we have much more degree of freedom. So we do not have all these standard operation procedures. Of course, in the quality department there was a lot, but not in the R&D.
What is that?
Yeah, it's a document that specifies how the company works and where responsibility lies. So that can be more or less detailed. They can be like 2 pages or they can be 50 pages. So,
but also related to the FDA or the EMA, for instance, that they are looking through that all the employees know their responsibilities, and when in the end the product is on the market.
That's the worst thing, I think. Audits, inspections by governments. Then you need to be accountable for what you've done and that you've done it in accordance with your SOPs. So it's kind of like being at an exam.
So an area that has not been touched, or just briefly, someone asked, when should you put the salary question on the table? And I know it's not the first at the first job interview, but do you increase your salary going from a PhD student to your first job? Was there a difference?
Yes, for me there was, definitely, yes. And even also go to R&D, where I specifically used my PhD, and where it is a requirement that I have a PhD, I was acknowledged even more. So yet it is, but it is a fixed term. There is not that much it's just a number on a paper, and they follow, like you say, the job title. So if you're a senior, you get even more. So
I think I'm not sure I agree with Ida's not to talk about salaries on the first meeting. I've been asked that question so many times on the first interview, where I wasn't prepared because I wasn't expecting it. So that can absolutely be a question that's asked on the first interview. And I think just be prepared already at the first interview. Go into your Union, thank you. And their website, they have like calculators where you can put in how much experience you have and what you're doing and so on, and what the start salary is. So you know, because of course you shouldn't give a unrealistic number, but it's also important to remember not to come into a job too low, because that's your starting point, and that's where your salary development will go on. I got in absolutely too low on my first job because I just wanted the job and I wasn't too concerned about. It was more than my PhD salary and I was happy. But when I moved to my second company, I increased my salary with 13,000 because I pushed and I demanded a higher salary. And that I could do because There had been a really good discussion during the interview, and I could feel that my manager wanted to hire me, and that's why I felt I could push it a bit more. So of course not unrealistic, but don't be afraid to push it a little bit. They can afford it.
And what about all the bonus talk? Is that also a negotiation, or?
Yeah.
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 So.
Well, a lot of bonus agreements are standard, but you can, if you're not happy with your salary, you can negotiate, for example, extra pension or extra vacation, or in some instances a car if you need it.
So what is the standard pension? Is that 10% still?
It's very different.
It's very different
between companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, it's 8 in Arla.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. First, we have a question from Ali. He's asking if you would be interested in connecting on LinkedIn, as Ida suggested earlier.
Sure.
So you may get a lot of requests now.
Yes.
It's
Be
okay.
prepared. Then it's a follow-up from Hermina. She writes, in academia, we are usually compensated for working over hours and weekends. How about this in the industry? Is there a contrast where, or perhaps contract, where it's compensated by extra holidays or extra hours or so on?
I have not experienced.
No, sorry.
But I think that is related back to the flexibility, that there is a flexibility in the job and you compensate week to week.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think in my contract it says specifically, and it has the last
Yes.
2 positions I've been in, that overtime is just a part of the job. So, yeah.
You have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
She's also asking if you are still allowed to do peer review work for journals while working in the industry, or is that against the contract?
I don't think it is against the contract in my job. I do it as the job allows, and sometimes I take some of my spare time to do it if I found it relevant or find it relevant. So in my job, it's still possible to do.
Same for me.
Okay. Is it something you asked about in the interview, or you?
No.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious from what you just said about the salary negotiations. How do you prepare for that? Because I have never negotiated my salary anywhere, so I wouldn't know how to prepare for that at all. Do you have some tips on that?
Well, I went into my union's website all of the times I've been called to an interview, but I also I talk to my colleagues about salary levels. I'm interested to hear what people make, and I'm very adamant to not be at a worse level than my male peers. So that's important to me. So I talk to people.
I simply call the union, and then they have a calculator like the tables where they can say it. So that's the fast way to do it. Yeah. Then you get a level, and they say that you have to require they recommend that you require this level.
Okay. Questions from that table? Okay, it's good. More questions online? No? Okay, then you'll have the microphone.
So if you look back when you were struggling and applying for the first job, could you see, or could you define something that made the successful application process successful compared to the previous applications that weren't successful? Like the approach, or you called the company, or whatever.
I think the way that I structured my first application and my CV, it was improved during the process, and I actually think that was an important point. Because for me it was very hard to define what is my competences and what am I good at, and what of the competences that I have obtained through my PhD can I convert and translate into the industry and into my CV, into simple words, simple keywords. That was very, very hard, and that was where I used the career consultant because she could help me to convert my practical experience into competences. I think that was very, very hard. And I still think it is. I don't think I have the solution.
I just think the first job is hard. It's difficult because you haven't tried it. But I think it's important, as you say, to kind of to think about the different competences you have, but also what you try not to focus so much on what the company can give you, but more focus this discussion of what you can offer the company, because that's what they want to hear. That's what they're looking for.
But I also think that you can think too much about it.
Absolutely. I think also in the interviews, it's important to listen to what they're asking you about,
Yeah.
and what they're try to kind of go with the flow and figure out where they're trying to get you. Because I think my experience has been that they often try to help you along with the interviews. I mean, it's not as scary as it seems. So if you just like relax and take the discussion as it comes, and be prepared, know what company you're walking into. And also, I've always Googled LinkedIn, the managers, the people I'm talking to see what kind of background they have, and I can kind of direct the conversation in that way.
But I also think that it's important to remember Ida's point that they are hiring people. So there are no right answers. You can answer whatever you will, but you have to be honest and you have to be yourself. You don't have to think about what do they want to hear me say. You just, I think if you are relaxed and say what you want to say, then they fully agree on that, because they want to see which kind of person you are. Yeah.
And don't be discouraged. I mean, if the chemistry isn't there, it's not there, and then it's not a company you want to work in, or at least not with that manager. So, I mean, it's not life or death. You'll get another opportunity then. So.
Okay, I think I will have the last question then. Ida also mentioned something that she will look up on the social media if you have been posting something controversial. So, is there a policy in the company that you are not allowed to post, or can you post anything on Twitter, LinkedIn, also mentioning the company's name and so on?
Why are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
Okay, so I think why Tor is asking me is because when I had been working for MSD for 6 months, we had a huge lawsuit thing where someone in the company had posted a promotional message, and you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to promote to the public. So I was handling a lawsuit at 6 months in, and I had no experience. That was fun. But yeah, so no.
So
you cannot do that. You have to remember
social
that
media
no
in relation to the company, but of course you can do it on your private account.
Mm-mm.
Not even?
Not even. No, not in pharma. You can't post promotional. You are accountable as long as you're hired you're working in the company.
Yeah. But if you're not posting something about the company,
No,
then
no, of course not. Yeah,
okay.
of course. Yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay, I thought it was the last question. We had the last question here, and then
last two questions here from the chat. One is, are you then allowed to have your own company while working in the industry if it's a company where you don't do much work, so you can do it in your free time? Do you know?
I think I think it is allowed. Actually, I don't know. But if you are a yoga instructor or something, I think you are allowed to.
I think it's different from company to company, but I think also the main issue is if your company is something that kind of interferes with the other, or if there's some intellectual property issue. So you need to look that up, I think.
And then perhaps you know where to find mentor platforms, where to look for them.
I think it is the best start is to go to start at the university and ask the university if they have an opportunity to apply for a mentor. I think most of them, the university have it. Yeah, but I don't. At Aarhus University, they use a lot of energy and they match people. They have a pool of potential mentors, and they match. And if there is no match, they go out and find other persons that can match. But I don't know here in Copenhagen or Southern University if they do it. But yeah.
Okay, I think we should wrap up. And first of all, give Anna and Anne a huge applause. So this is the end. Just some commercial. We will have a one-day symposia in Copenhagen later this year, where if you are interested in meeting someone from the industry, we'll have 5 or 6 companies coming, and you can talk to them and hear what they are looking for also. And then evaluation. You have received an evaluation form. Please look at it and submit your answer on the email. Yes, yeah. So you can look at it when you come home. But thank you for joining us today, and we'll probably be back with an event like this next year. Okay, thank you.